Live from our studio audience, it's 5 More Minutes, Mom, with your hosts, Brielle and Guerlain, on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody. I was forgetting about the mute button. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 5 More Minutes, Mom. I'm Brielle.
And I'm Guerlain.
At the bottom of the screen, we have a little roller that has all of our social media, both for 5 More Minutes, Mom, and for our little parent network, Empty the Bench, as well as our personal, handles for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we got it. Follow us, give us a like, make a comment, all that.
All that jazz. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so today's episode is going to be about parents, and kind of the different, kind of parental styles we were kind of shown and exposed to as kids with the shows that we watched.
Yeah. Um. At the way. The way for us, I feel people, millennials, early Gen Zers, a lot of the media that we consume, the way they portrayed parents, it was either very like the bumbling idiot, right? Um, kids against adults, or sometimes you will get that nice balance type of parenting. um like the first thing that comes to my head when I think of bumbling idiots, I think Timmy Turner's parents. They were kind of oblivious to everything. And then when I
Yeah.
think balance, um the Weekenders, that Disney show, that Disney.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the Weekenders. Yeah.
um I forgot the character's name, one of the main characters,
Yeah.
but the relationship he had with his mom was really balanced and
Yeah,
very well
she
written.
was like a chill mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because you know what it is? It's like it depended on the type of show that it was. Because if it was like an educational show or a show for younger children, the parents would always be, part of it. They'd always be there because, it was a show about teaching children the ABCs or about their emotions. So of course the parents had to be there. And of course the parents were loving and supportive and, careful and but then you have the other, like, children's shows where it's a hindrance to have the parents there because then the kids can't go on adventures because then Timmy Turner can't, make wishes, so they have to be neglectful and they have to be absent-minded and bad parents.
Right.
So it's very interesting the the dichotomy or, because I think that still exists today. I mean, I think there are still shows where the parents are kind of ridiculous or like out of the picture so that the adventures can happen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that the fact that for a lot of us, we were exposed to parents that were loving and supportive and intelligent, um, is a good thing because I think it made our generation who are just now starting to have kids, want to emulate that. Cause like there's this whole thing about like gentle parenting, how
Mhm.
that's like a new style of parenting, even though it's existed for decades. Like people have always been doing it. But I think it's great that like our generation is trying to be a gentle parent, is trying to be a better parent to their children. And I think it's because for a lot of us, the adults that we saw on TV, even if they weren't necessarily parents in their show, were gentle and were kind and were helpful, which I think is great.
Right. I can recall so many times growing up, specifically in middle school, a lot of my classmates would say, they would vent about a situation that happened with their parents,
Mhm.
either like they felt as if they were too strict, or um not giving enough leniency to their
Mhm.
child just being a kid.
Yeah.
And the sentiment around us was, if I ever do have kids, or when I do have kids,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna treat them this way. Like, that was
Yeah.
a big sentiment that was being said. And you mentioning characters who weren't necessarily parents, but we spoke about him before. But
Yeah.
Steve was a very gentle, positive character on TV. Speaking from personal experience, I feel Steve's influence is what kind of gave me like a bit of whiplash. And what I mean by that, I'm watching Blue's Clues,
Right.
and at the end of every single episode, what does Steve say? You sure are smart, right? You can do anything that you wanna
That you
do, right?
wanna do.
Goes So now, Blue's Clues is finished.
Yeah.
Snap back into the real world, and not that my parents were bad per se, but they didn't have that same sentiment that you can do anything that you want to do. It was, no, this is how the world works. You have to do X, Y, and Z, right? You got to follow these rules, and then college, get a 9 to 5, you work, you continue the cycle. That's not what Steve, portrayed. He was saying, "Oh," and you could say it was a bit optimistic, like, right, right. You could say that, like, oh, it's not realistic, but looking at the landscape of what a lot of people our age and even younger are able to do now because of social media, and like, you people are making a living, and this is not new, but just saying it still is crazy. People are making a living playing video games. How many times, Jerry, you better get off that video game, you're gonna rot your brain,
It's 'cause you're on
like,
that damn phone.
you're on that damn phone,
It's 'cause
exactly.
you're on
but
that damn phone.
but now people being on the damn phone is making them millions,
Oh, yeah,
thousands, right?
absolutely.
So in a sense, Steve was right. But for me, it gave me a bit of whiplash, because
Oh,
Steve is telling me this, and then my parents are telling me something else, and I obviously like what Steve is saying more, so that causes friction between my parents and I, and
yeah.
and and I could imagine a lot of my classmates, uh, when they were saying stuff like that, like, when I have children, or if I have children, I'm not gonna do things this way. It could be because of what they see portrayed on TV and what they're getting in real life.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of what our generation is doing is we're breaking cycles. I mean, this is getting more into, like, not so much TV and just into life in general, but I think a lot of people our age are realizing the toxicity and realizing, I think, the bad things that they were exposed to as children that maybe their parents didn't even realize they were doing. Like, I don't want to blame anybody, or suggest it was on purpose, but I think that we're starting to break a cycle that's existed for a lot of generations, and I think that's a good thing.
Right.
It's tough. It's not easy, because you usually have to contend with the idea that your parents are not perfect people, which is hard for a lot of us. But I think it's good that we're starting to realize what actually is a good thing and what's a bad thing when it comes to, like, being a parent.
Yeah.
You know. Um, yeah, but it just really is so interesting, like, just to think about the dynamics of a children's television show, because, as an adult watching them, like, I'll watch Rugrats and I'll be like, "Oh my god, these babies are getting into so much trouble. Where the fuck are their parents?" But of course, their parents can't be there, because if their parents were there, there wouldn't be a show. So there has to be child endangerment.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, it's so, like, it really is it's a very interesting kind of convention of children's television, that the parents have to be bad parents in order for, but then at the same time the show will tell us that they're good parents.
Yeah.
Like, even though, like, there are a few like, exceptions to the rule, but even though, like, Tommy and Chucky and Angelica get into all these, like, messes. One, they never get actually hurt. Two, they never get lost or anything like that. And three, we're told multiple times throughout the series or shown that Dee Dee and Stu are actually good parents. Like they care about their children a lot and they like care about all their children's friends. So it's like it's a weird, you know, at least in Fairly Odd Parents, we know that Timmy's parents are bad. Like people say it.
Yeah, they're trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like yeah.
And if an adult figure is bad, um, and whatever, like think Disney, you think Cinderella, the
Yeah.
evil stepmother, right? It was the
Yeah.
stepmother. They're ridiculously evil.
Yes.
Like this is not. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there in the world who are actually like that, but like really think about it. Who's
Yeah.
gonna lock their stepdaughter up? And I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. But, yeah, you're right. I think because I mean, granted, like, the Disney stories came from fairy tales,
Mm,
so they weren't, like, making it up, but, yeah, the idea of a step-parent is always, you know, there's always a hint of evil with them, specifically stepmothers, which
right.
is sad, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
That
w-
that's weird. That's something that, like, a lot of people, like, smarter than me have looked into, like, the idea of why stepmothers are considered, like, evil or why they're always painted as evil.
mm,
And it's mostly just because they're replacing someone else, and they're
yeah,
replacing the idea of the perfect mother because see the thing that like makes for example Cinderella's actual mother perfect is that she dies, so she
mm,
doesn't have time to be a regular person and accidentally do something bad or make a mistake like a regular person would. She dies when Cinderella is very young. So, in Cinderella's eyes and in everyone else in the story's eyes, she's perfect. There's nothing, she never did anything wrong. So now the stepmother comes in and she has to match up to that while also having to raise this child that's not really her own.
right.
And like obviously like she's evil. Like that's we understand that. But like I think that's why it's so easy to say that it's like to make oh an evil stepmother because the mother's dead so she's perfect. So anyone who steps in is going to be evil, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like trying to be a stepmother apologist, like the evil stepmother in Cinderella is evil, but like, but that's kind of, I think, why they're so easy to paint with that brush, because they're taking the spot of someone almost like their whole like, the like, mother, what's that? What is it called? Like the Madonna complex, like the whole idea of like this perfect, untouchable, mother who can do no wrong and you're replacing her, So
Mm,
it's like when I know plenty of people who had stepmothers who were like the nicest ladies ever, who were so loving and so caring, better than their own mothers.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I feel a lot of shows lack some nuance when it came to parenting because it was
Yeah.
always not always, but it was often the ends, like the extreme ends of the spectrum,
Yeah.
like extremely neglectful, like Turner's parents,
Mhm.
and then just so upbeat, so positive, like let's say, yeah, we could say like Kim Possible parents were like
Yeah.
very because like
I
their
mean,
daughters
they
out
did let
there,
their daughter, like,
yeah,
fight crime, which, like, yes, Kim Possible is very capable, but she also was a teenager, and these are grown adults with, like, super powered weapons, and they're letting her fight them. Like,
the whole
I don't know
motto,
how great that is when you really think about it.
anything is possible for a possible.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess so.
that was the thing. But it's see, like at the extreme ends. I can't really think of a lot of stuff that we would have came up on that had that type of nuance. When I think about that, I think more outside. I think Cosby Show. Like I know it's he's controversial.
Yeah, but the show itself.
the show itself, the way they portrayed the parenting style of Dr. Huxtable, both Huxtables, and the way they approach their children,
Mhm.
it was very nuanced. Like it showed that they could make mistakes as parents too,
Yeah, absolutely.
but it also showed, okay, listen, I'm not gonna baby you, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lay down the hammer. Like we talk in this house, we talk things out. Either we're gonna joke about it and talk it out, or we're gonna sit down seriously and talk it
Mhm.
out. But regardless, we are gonna talk. We're gonna have a clear communication, and we're gonna solve this issue. Um, I don't know, but for us, I can't really think of any 90s, early 2000s shows that had that type of nuance. I don't know if you could think of.
Well, you could argue like Full House,
Okay.
which was kind of the same thing, because it was the 90s, because that period of time was very like after school special, you know, it was very much Danny Tanner was like one of the best TV dads, and he still is considered one of the best TV dads of all time because he was open, he was understanding, he talked to his children. Occasionally he yelled, but they always found a way to come together at the end and
Mm,
everyone get a big hug and like the Huxtables, he would make mistakes and things would happen and he would have to own up to that. And that's something I think that's so important about these shows, and I think it's why our generation is so into gentle parenting. It's because in these shows, the parents apologized when they did something wrong. They would
mm,
say, "I'm sorry, DJ, I'm sorry, Stephanie, like, it was wrong of me to push you to do this or tell you to do that. Like, next time I'm going to talk to you about it." And they go, "Thanks, Dad. Next time I'll be sure to like tell you what I'm really feeling," or like, "Thanks, Dad, for helping me, even though you did push." So it's like when we see that, we want to model that in our own lives as opposed to like just like the iron hammer, which to be honest wasn't really shown in TV shows. It's not like, Leave It to Beaver, the dad on that show was like,
mm.
but there was a different understanding that the kids did what the parents said and that was it, you know?
Right.
And Beaver got into all these mishaps because he was being like a little cheeky, naughty little boy, and not because his parents maybe should have watched him better, like
Right.
so yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it's the fact that maybe in cartoons we had like weird neglectful parents, but in all the live action shows, the parents, maybe they were a little bumbling, to add to the humor,
Mm.
but ultimately they cared. I mean, think about like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like they
Yeah,
weren't even
yeah.
really Will's parents, but Uncle Phil loved him and he was part of the family, and that show had a lot of life lessons while also being hilarious.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the reason why J. Cole, in that song that everyone likes to quote, he says, "First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil,"
Yeah.
because he was a father figure for a lot of people, and, the unfortunately, the black stereotype of the father figure not being there.
Mhm.
He's speaking for a lot of black black people saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
like, he was a father to all of us," and unfortunately, he passed, back in 2013, and it was sad, but yeah, it's yeah, facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting because you have that like version of parents that's great and wonderful. And then you have like codenamed kids next door where the parents are literally evil and they like want to fight the kids. So like it's very funny when you think about, you know, how everyone is portrayed and the extremes that you can go to.
Oh, uh, one thing on Codename Kids Next Door, they had a such a heartfelt, heartwarming moment where they have this thing where, so when you're a kid, you're an operative, you fight
Yeah.
adult tyranny. Once you're a teenager, you have to get decommissioned, so they have
Yes.
to erase your memory and everything.
Yeah.
But you could be recommissioned by a special machine. And it
Yes.
turns out that number one's dad he was the first kids operative. He was number zero. And so he recommissioned his dad. He's like, "Oh my god, my dad was number zero, yada yada yada." And they go on an a mission together to defeat their grandfather, oddly enough. But then at the end, his dad had to be decommissioned again. But number one, he wanted to keep his dad as number zero. Uh, but while he was still number zero, he sabotaged the machine because he knew that number one would want to bring him back. And he left a message. He was just like, "Hey, listen, I'm not a kid anymore, unfortunately. But however, I want you to know that I'm proud of you for the kid that you are, and who you're becoming in life. And even though I won't be number zero anymore, I want you to know that I'm gonna enjoy my mission, my last mission, to be your father. And we're gonna that'll be our mission together. We can't do real missions together, but this, me being your father, you being my son, loving each other, learning and growing. That's it." And that was, yeah, thinking about it just brings tears to it's just like, yeah, that was really heartwarming just to have
Yeah.
that message.
Aw, that's really
Yeah.
sweet.
It is,
Yeah,
right?
I remember, like, the whole, like, you have to get decommissioned when you become a teenager. I remember, like, that episode where they talk about it, um, which is sad.
Yeah.
Something else that I wanna bring up is another children's show. This one is not from our childhood, it's right now, and that's Bluey.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, myself included, really like Bluey, and a lot of people say that Bluey is more of a show for parents than a show for children because of the way that it kind of shows childhood and it shows parenting. And honestly, that is 100% true. I do think it's a children's show, like, it's for kids, I definitely think so.
Mhm.
But I do think it's a great show for parents to watch because the parents in the show, Bandit and Chili, which are Bluey's parents, are wonderful parents, and they are great because they make mistakes, and they acknowledge their mistakes, and they, fight sometimes, and they have their little arguments, and sometimes, they get frustrated with their children, and sometimes they need to back off and, like, "I need 20 minutes. Give me 20 minutes without talking to anybody."
Right.
But, but the show is so, like, wholesome and sweet because at the end of the day, the reason that Bandit and Chili are such wonderful parents is because, 1, they love their daughters and they love them for exactly who they are, even if sometimes they're annoying. They love their daughters. But 2, they they talk to their daughters and they communicate and they, work with their children to figure out a solution to any kind of issue they have.
Mm.
Like, that's what's so wonderful, and again, I think it's because of the shows that came before it, because we have all those shows where the parents are terrible and the parents are neglectful, borderline abusive, and so here's this show where the parents try really hard. They try to make life wonderful and amazing and magical for their daughters. They play games with their daughters. They go along with things. And something that I love about Bluey actually is that all of the parents in the show are like that. So a lot of times in the show, Bluey and her sister Bingo will be playing with their father, and someone else in the neighborhood will stop by, like another kid or another parent, and the parents will play along.
Aw.
So, like, in this last episode that I watched, Bandit, the dad, was pretending to be a sheep, and his daughters were trying to be like sheep herders. And he went into the other yard next door and he was like bothering the mom there. And the
Mm.
mom's like, "Don't worry, girls, I'll take care of this sheep." And like they all play
Mm.
together, and which is so fantastic. Like, all the parents are so focused on making sure their children's childhoods are wonderful that they play along and they be silly and they act silly and they go along with it, which is
Yeah.
wonderful. Like, it's something that I really like about that show, that, like, it the show allows the adults to be silly, which I think is so important. I think that that's a really good way to be a good parent, is
Right.
to allow yourself to be silly and have fun and play, which I think is, like, all what Bluey is about.
I like that.
Not me
But
getting emotional about a
uh,
little Australian dog.
that
It's such a good show. It really is.
for
Uh,
you, was there any sort of disconnect between what you saw in media and how you were with your parents in real life?
um, Not really.
Hmm.
I will be the first to admit that I had a very good childhood. My parents were very loving, are very loving, and ultimately my parents have always been very supportive of me and my goals and aspirations. And, while, they would yell at me occasionally when I did something wrong, I was never like afraid of my parents. I was never like disciplined in that way. Like if I did something wrong, my mom would like tell me to go stand in a corner for like a couple minutes and
Mm,
then think about what I did. It's funny. My dad actually, he spanked me. He spanked me once, and that was it. He never did it again because
mm,
he felt so bad for spanking me, and he was like, "I can't do it. We can't discipline our kids that way." Which, by the way, do not spank your kids. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how your family did it for the past 200 years. Do not spank your kids. Do not spank your kids. It is not a good way to discipline them. It is always bad. And if you're like, "Well, I was spanked and I'm fine." No, you're not fine because you think spanking is okay.
yeah.
If you think actually like hitting a child is the best way to discipline them, you are wrong. And if you think that, "Oh, I got spanked and I'm fine," then that just proves that you're not fine because you think hitting children is okay. Sorry, I just
No,
had to
no,
say that. I'm
go
sorry.
off.
I don't think the people who watch the show are in that position, but
Mm,
I'm just saying. But yeah, I will admit that I'm very lucky that my parents are who they are and that I was raised the way I was because I know for a lot of people it wasn't like that. And um so for me, I never really had that disconnect. Steve said to me, "You can do anything that you want to do." My parents kind of said the same.
that's what's up.
And so I realized that that's an incredible place of privilege, and I'm very lucky to have parents that would do anything for me and I think raised me very well.
Yeah.
um because now, I mean, I don't plan on having children. I don't really want to have children, but I do know that if I were to have kids that I would know how to raise them, and I would hopefully do a good job of it because not only did I have like parents on TV, but also my parents who were very good. And I had grandparents to help support me and I had aunts and uncles to help support me. And yeah.
That's that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good. Um,
But also,
obviously, it's
like,
been mhm.
I was a very good kid.
Ah,
I was a
yeah,
good
right.
kid. I didn't cause my parents a lot of stress. Like, I wasn't, like, out late running around, drinking, partying, dating. Like, I didn't do any of that. I was
Uh,
I was kind of boring as a kid.
But I guess to essentially wrap this up, even though like this is great, this conversation that we're having. Uh, parenting is hard.
Oh,
R-
absolutely.
Raising another human being is I couldn't imagine how difficult it
Oh, yeah.
is to help shape a mind and
Yeah.
to make sure that they get that you prepare them as much as you can because everything's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like, uh, 2 years ago they fucking stormed the Capitol. Like, how do you prepare people for that? Like, not even just children, like just as you get older,
Yeah.
because you I would imagine one raise their child based on what they know.
Yeah.
This is how the world works. Look out for this. You want to do this. You want to do that, and then something happens that throws a wrench and all that, and it's like, hey, this is new. Like,
Yeah.
you need to, you know, um, it's not easy, and I well when it comes to the talks of like being patient and mental health and all that is still a new territory that we're all as a society that we're having. These conversations weren't necessarily being taken seriously
Mhm.
20 years from then, but you know we
Yeah.
uh, we're trying, but they're trying, and I just say that just to like we're not here to bash parents
No,
because
no,
yeah,
absolutely not. Yeah.
because it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard.
I
Yeah.
think what we're trying to say is that I think when it comes to if you're gonna take lessons from television, which I don't even think you should do, but if you're gonna take lessons from television, be like the parents from Full House, from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, from the Cosby Show, from, like the Brady Bunch, be open, be supportive, be caring, be kind, be helpful, and remember, I guess at the end of the day that you're raising a little human and
Yeah.
you have to help them become a human and to quote the late great Stephen Sondheim, careful the things you say, children will listen and learn, but also careful the things you do, children won't listen. So, you have to just do your best because children will do what you say and they'll also not do what you say. So I think at the end of the day, I'm very glad for the parents that we had on television and in movies. I think knowing that they were there, that I could turn on my TV and there was Danny Tanner and he would, make me feel better if I was having a rough day. Like that was always really nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think we're done. Again, at the bottom is our scroller with all of our social media handles. Please give us a like, a follow, leave a comment. Tell us your favorite TV parent. Like, who did you really like? Were you a big fan of like Lizzie McGuire's parents? Like, thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate your support.
Yep. And until next time,
All right,
later.
bye, guys.